Morals, ethics. We all have different opinions on what we find morally and or ethically just. What I see as morally sound, you may see as morally corrupt. And that's honestly the beauty of the human experience. We're all individuals who experience things separately. And because of that, the fact that we manage to find connection between us is genuinely impressive. But because differences in morality are such a huge part of human culture, it's also baked into any literature we create. Bad guys argue with good guys about what they find just. Heroes and villains alike tell people like Batman and Superman to just start killing. The Avengers tell Thanos that deleting half of a universe isn't gonna solve his problems and isn't morally just. And the thing is, the anime world is no exception to this rule, especially Naruto. Naruto is filled with more moral and ethical questions than any other anime I can think of. People like Nagato and Madara and Danzo all have very unique moral and ethical stances that they pose against the so-called good guys. The reason I put the so-called good guys in asterisks today is because today we're talking about those so-called good guys. Today, we're talking about Konoha, and more specifically, how Konoha may not be the good guys we all tout them to be. Even though as we sit here and watch through Naruto, we're led to believe that Konoha is always in the right, there's times that prove to us just the opposite. Today, I would like to highlight it to you that Konoha, well, overwhelmingly usually in the right, are more often than I would like, very much in the wrong. Today, I'm posing the question, are Konoha the bad guys? But before we get into any deep moral or ethical conversations, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you want to be ethically and or morally correct in my eyes, well, you would go ahead and follow my other YouTube page, The Weeb Commander, where I talk about any anime that's not Naruto. We just posted our first ever One Punch Man video there. Before we get to talking about all that, guys, today we're gonna talk about a brand new sponsor to the page, HelloFresh. See guys, this is the most excited I've been about an ad on our page in a long time. See, personally, I've used HelloFresh for over 3 years, and I love it. HelloFresh has done a myriad of things for me. You see, I started HelloFresh in college. I was a sophomore living with 4 other guys in a 5-bedroom house, and I had absolutely no idea how to cook. But I hated grocery shopping, and I never had good ideas for recipes. So I got into HelloFresh, and not only did HelloFresh teach me how to cook, it kept my palate entertained with a myriad of diverse and delicious recipes. You see, every single week, HelloFresh gives you 30 plus options and 70 plus convenience items that are delivered directly to your door. They offer seasonal tastes like pumpkin in the fall, and all of their produce is incredibly fresh. But more than that, HelloFresh allowed me to lose over 55 pounds. See, by knowing exactly what I was cooking and having it proportioned out for me, I was able to keep track of what I ate. And with this ability and the myriad of healthy options that are presented to you with HelloFresh, I was able to lose 55 pounds. Not to mention, I wasn't sacrificing an ounce of flavor. But more than anything, HelloFresh can allow you to eat sustainably. In fact, HelloFresh is the first carbon neutral meal kit. But let me show you guys what cracking into a HelloFresh looks like every week for me. See, all of their packaging is recyclable. And when you open the box, you get to see your 3 and or 4 if you have 4 selected menu items for the week. And tonight, I'm making one of my favorite meals from HelloFresh, their Santa Fe tacos. But telling you guys isn't enough. Today I'm gonna show you how much HelloFresh has taught me how to cook. Look, I don't even have to look when I'm cutting onions nowadays. The prep on these meals is so easy. And the product? Always comes out delicious. Within the sustainable packaging, we also have our meals. This right here is crispy buffalo spice chicken. Now this is gonna have your rice, your potatoes, your carrots. It's also gonna have all of the seasonings and cooking essentials you need outside of oil and salt and pepper. Then packed separately is our protein. For that meal, it would be a chicken cutlet. And let me tell you, all of the protein and the produce provided by HelloFresh is top notch. So what are you guys waiting for? Go to HelloFresh.com/21NCHammer23 or use code 21NCHammer23 at checkout for 21 free meals and free shipping. Once again, the code is 21NCHammer23. So come on guys, achieve your fitness goals and help the planet by switching to HelloFresh. So ethics and values, they can vary greatly simply based on the fact of where you're born. One thing that's an everyday occurrence in one country can be seen as a blasphemous activity in another. But just because some things are disagreed upon morally and ethically doesn't mean that there isn't some things that are universally agreed upon. Things that an overwhelming percentage of people look at and go, not good. And those are the kinds of things we're going to be looking at today. We're not going to talk about things like, oh, Kakashi blew out Rin's back before marriage, because the overwhelming majority of people agree, hey, why not? She said he could, but in some places, that's not allowed. Now, today we're going to be talking about universally agreed on, relatively disgusting things that Konoha has done over Naruto's timeline. And the first thing that we're going to touch on is kind of a big one. See, within the confines of Konoha's ranks, there is a special squad of ninjas. Now, these ninjas are referred to as Tokubetsu Jonin, and you might have recognized one of the words in that grouping, and that's Jonin. See, these Tokubetsu Jonin are Jonin, but also sort of aren't Jonin. This is a classification for ninjas who excel in one specific thing at a Jonin or above level. However, in other things that a regular Jonin would excel in simply don't. So in recognition of their abilities at one specific thing, they're given the title Tokubetsu Jonin. And one of those Tokubetsu Jonin is named Ibiki. See, Ibiki is a fair to medium strong Jonin who excels at one thing. However, that one thing is interrogation. And I know what you're saying.
Nick, people get interrogated all over the globe. That's how we find out about crimes.
However, that's not the only thing that Ibiki excels at, as he is technically the leader of Konoha's, and I'm saying this verbatim, Konoha's torture and interrogation squadron. Yeah, you heard that right. Konoha has a torture force, a group fully dedicated to torturing other shinobis for information. In fact, Ibiki's torture and interrogation skills are so legendary that when Kisame saw that they were getting cornered by Konoha Leaf Shinobi and Ibiki was one of them, he knew that the information of the two people he was protecting would get leaked by Ibiki, so he killed them. Ibiki has actually been described as a sadist by Kakashi, and Ibiki himself has stated that pain is a type of communication, stating that he carries that belief into his interrogations. However, sometimes he doesn't actually use physical torture, as it's stated that he can incur incredible pain onto his subjects without even touching them. See, Ibiki has a very special understanding of human psychology, which allows him to attack a person's mind and break them mentally. But don't let that trick you into thinking that he never tortures people physically. See, we saw Ibiki fight against the Animal Path in the Pain arc, and in that fight we saw Ibiki summon two things, an Iron Maiden and a torture chamber. The torture chamber chains somebody's limbs and pulls them until they're taut. It then surrounds their entire body in garrote wire and slowly but surely tightens said garrote wire, cutting into their body from a myriad of different angles. And that's just Ibiki. Mind you, he's the head of the torture and interrogation force, which means there's literally dozens of other torturers in employ in Konoha. And Ibiki's torture is so good, they gave him a special title for it. That's a war crime. And we all sat down in Switzerland and agreed that a lot of those are bad. Sure, it was mostly Canada's fault, but that's okay. But since we're talking about sitting down and making things, let's talk about the foundation of Konoha. See, Konoha was founded by Tobirama, Hashirama, and Madara after the conclusion of the Warring States period. And while Konoha was founded with a couple of different principles, the most important principle that Konoha was founded with was no more kids in the wars. See, Madara had lost his brother Izuna, Hashirama and Tobirama had lost two brothers, and over the last 2,000 years of the Uchiha and Senju fighting, millions of children from both respective clans had been killed. However, in order to break the cycle of children being on the battleground, Madara and Hashirama decided to cross their respective lines, shake hands, and create Konoha. And for all intents and purposes, these three did try pretty hard to keep children off the battlefield. I mean, more specifically than anyone, it was Tobirama, who not only created the Ninja Academy, but also made the Chunin exam. See, the Ninja Academy was to make sure that if anybody wanted to become a ninja, they A, had to be a certain age to enter the Ninja Academy, and B, were well enough versed in ninja activities that they might be able to hold their own. But Tobirama didn't believe this was far enough, and thus he made the Chunin exam. Now, the Chunin exam was meant, and keyword on meant here, we're going to come back to this point in a second, to emulate war, to make sure that children who wanted to become Chunin understood what war looked like and were ready for it. This is why Genin had to be approved by their Jonin to enter the Chunin exam. There was multiple layers of bureaucratic red tape that somebody had to go through before they became a Chunin. The reason why becoming a Chunin is important because technically nobody was supposed to be sent into war until they were a Chunin. Big emphasis on technically. Because even though Madara, Hashirama, and Tobirama came together to make sure children would no longer die on the battlefield, whole buddy, do children die on the battlefield? Some great examples of this would be Tsunade's younger brother in the Second Great Shinobi World War, who was a Genin but was sent out to do few missions during the Second Great Shinobi World War and was subsequently killed. Mind you, this is a point we'll touch on later, but the Second Great Shinobi World War was an act of aggression by Konoha, so there was really no need for Genin to be sent out. Nobody was really attacking Konoha. They were just sending more soldiers, and they decided, hey, let's tap into the people who haven't yet taken the Chunin exam. Another great example of this is Kakashi's squad in the Third Great Shinobi World War, as they were sent deep into enemy lines in the Land of Grass to destroy a bridge to break the transportation route for the Hidden Stone. And now, while I believe technically at this moment Kakashi was a Jonin and Obito and Rin were both Chunin, they were 11, which is technically too young to become an Anbu captain, so why are we sending them behind enemy lines? Why are we sending 3 11-year-olds to complete a crucial war task? Sure, one of them's a Jonin and 2 of them are Chunin, but still children. For that matter, why isn't there an age limit to become a Chunin? After all, Kakashi became a Chunin at 6. Sure, he's incredibly talented, but so were Hashirama's brothers, and they still died. While we're on that point, why don't we talk about the Chunin exam itself? A lot of the Chunin exam makes a lot of sense. There's a written test you're supposed to use your ninja abilities to cheat on. There's observed one-on-one combat matches to make sure that you have some combat ability. And then, you know, there's Forest of Death. Oh, I'm sorry, what was that? Forest of Death? You mean to tell me death is in the name? The village where children are not supposed to die have to go through a place where they die to make sure that they won't die. You telling me the Hokages are sitting there looking at these dead kids in a forest filled with giant animals and being like,
Good thing we found out that one couldn't go to war.
you telling me they're picking up the mangled carcasses of Gaara's victims just being like, wow, thank God we have this vetting system? How is putting children, who, mind you, up to this point only had to pass a written exam in the Hunger Games, a better solution than war? Why even do the Forest of Death? Boruto actually somehow did the Chunin exams better. The entire thing was observed by Jonin. There was a simulated battle, capture the flag. You did not just shove 35 children in a forest filled with kaiju and hope, oh, a couple of them will come out and those will be our winners. The village was founded on saving children, and you built a testament to killing children. And also, why are other villages okay with that? You're telling me other villages before the peacetime era were sending their promising genin to Konoha, and sometimes they would die? Matter of fact, why doesn't every village just do its own Chunin exam? Why are we sending our soldiers to get approved in another village? It's a child gladiatorial battle. And lastly, this one doesn't really have to do with war or anything like that, but Hiruzen, the Hokage, and Danzo technically forged Itachi's age to make him an Anbu captain younger than the age cap is. They saw Itachi, they were like, wow, we really want him in charge of our secret assassination squad at 12. And so they were like, yeah, he's 13. Just let him go do it. On top of that, why is the age cap 13? To be a squad leader of the Anbu. But since we're talking about the people responsible for making Itachi a squad leader of the Anbu at 12, let's talk about Danzo. You could sit here and say, oh, Konoha's not responsible for Danzo, but they are. In the same way that America's responsible for Oliver North. Just because the average Konoha citizen, and maybe even the Hokage, didn't know what Danzo were doing in the dark, they should have found out. And more than that, they should have held him accountable for what he did. Danzo single-handedly orchestrated the massacre of an entire clan. And before you say,
It's the Uchiha's fault,
it's not. The Uchihas had every right to be upset. In fact, if I was them, I would have thrown the coup earlier, because the Uchihas were subliminally blamed for the releasing of Kurama on Naruto's birthday. When Danzo and Hiruzen told them that they couldn't go out to help in the fight against Kurama and that they should keep an eye on Konoha's border, making sure that they were as far from Kurama as possible. Even though if the Uchihas had gone to help in the battle against Kurama, Minato and Kushina would still be alive. Danzo was also responsible for destabilizing the Hidden Rain when he pitted Hanzo the Salamander against the Akatsuki, which not only resulted in Yahiko's death, but also resulted in Nagato summoning the Geto statue and joining Obito to form the Akatsuki as we knew them. Also, Danzo, after the Uchiha massacre, just went to the Uchiha hideout and started plucking out Sharingans and put him in his arm. The arm, by the way, that he had gotten from Orochimaru, who he was fully aware of the fact was doing human experimentation. In fact, it's largely implied that Danzo was helping Orochimaru in his Hashirama cell binding lab studies in order to recreate wood release, which killed over 70 children. But since we're talking about Danzo, let's talk about the root. subsection of the Anbu that only listens to danzo, not the Hokage, where people like Sai were trained, who's claimed to kill over 1,000 people. And people like Yamato were trained, who was actually sent to assassinate Hiruzen. And people like Tsurune Aburame were trained, who was actually the right-hand man of danzo, who had a technique called Jar of Poison that required him to have a mountain of bodies, and I mean thousands of dead people, who are all infected by a certain type of bug that he uses. And then these thousands of corpses would naturally release methane gas, which Tsurune Aburame would ignite, which would release a cloud of poison and poisonous bugs that Tsurune Aburame would use to kill thousands more. So genocides, attempted assassinations, and throwing over of small countries were all in a day's work for danzo, who very much works for Konoha and should be held accountable by Konoha. Because you know what Hiruzen did after he found out about the Uchiha massacre? He dissolved the root. Didn't kill danzo, didn't throw him in jail, just thought he took his power away. Danzo got to operate within the confines of Konoha for decades. In fact, the only reason he stopped is because Sasuke, a rogue ninja, killed him. But since we're talking about destroying the Hidden Rain, let's talk about the Second Great Shinobi World War, a war of aggression launched by Konoha against a small border country. And sure, you can sit here and say there's a lot more to the Second Great Shinobi World War than just Konoha fighting against the Hidden Rain, and you'd be right. But it doesn't play in Konoha's favor, because while the legendary Sannin were fighting against Hanzo the Salamander in the Hidden Rain, Sakamo Hatake was quite literally slicing through the hidden sand. In fact, it was the Second Great Shinobi World War where Sakamo Hatake got the White Fang title and got the run-on-site orders. It's also the war where Sakamo Hatake killed Sasori's parents. Konoha did not only launch offensive action against the Hidden Rain, they also launched it against the Hidden Sand, which at the time was by far and away the weakest shinobi village. And some fun things happened in the Second Great Shinobi World War of the Hidden Rain, like, I don't know, two Konoha shinobi massacring Nagato's parents directly in front of him, even though those parents happened to be doctors and also non-combatants. Also orphaning Yahiko and Konan, whose parents also might have been non-combatants. But don't worry about it, when the Ame orphans approached the legendary Sannin, I'm sure they were all super chill about it, right? Except Tsunade ignored them and Orochimaru wanted to kill them. I mean, obviously, Jiraiya stepped up, right? Definitely not because he was feeling guilty about ravaging a small country, though. No, that wouldn't be the reason or anything. But hey, listen, at least he helped, which is more than you can say for the Uzumakis or the Hyuga side branch family, because possibly during the Third Great Shinobi World War, Konoha did absolutely nothing to stop the assassination of an entire clan. It's pretty tough to do that twice in your history. Except here's the thing about the second time. Well, obviously Konoha, as far as we know, wasn't involved in the Uzumaki massacre. The Uzumakis had been quite literally centuries-long allies with the Senju and then Konoha. In fact, the Uzumakis are so important to Konoha that they put the Land of Whirlpool's crest on all of their Jonin jackets and Chunin jackets. They're the same thing. And the first Hokage, upon founding Konoha, married an Uzumaki to make sure that the bloodlines were tight. But the second that a couple of Uzumaki were in Konoha unsafe and therefore could be used as Jinchuriki, well, you guys can fend off those 4 other villages on your own. And who's to say Konoha didn't help? I've actually posted videos that it's highly likely that Danzo helped in the massacre of the Uchiha. But the Uzumakis were far away. How was Konoha supposed to help, right? They wouldn't do that if a clan lived inside of their walls. Right? Oh no, there's quite literally a family that enslaves half of its members in order to work in servitude for the other half for the rest of their lives, and they live within Konoha and actually hailed as Konoha royalty and said to be the strongest clan in Konoha. I forgot about that. Because the Hyugas, for quite literally almost the entirety of Hyuga history, which is all the way through the Warring States period, have been segregating their own clan into the main branch and the side branch. And every time the new clan head of the main branch is born, when they turn 3 years old, everybody in the side branch gets a curse mark on their forehead. But it's just a curse mark that protects the Byakugan so nobody steals it, right? Oh no, any main branch member can use certain hand seals to put any side branch member with a curse mark into instant excruciating pain. And if this technique is used too much, it can quite literally lobotomize the person it's being used on. So in reality, the side branch has to work in servitude to the main branch because otherwise they can just have their entire brain destroyed through the use of a curse mark. Oh, so slavery. That's fun, but at least they all have cool eyes, right? Surely Konoha would denounce such an archaic practice and ask the Hyugas not to do it anymore. I mean, after all, there is forbidden jutsu in Konoha, right? Jutsu that people aren't supposed to use because it's dangerous or against the laws of nature or something like that. No, we're not gonna forbid the curse seal that kills people and forces them into servitude. Okay. That's fine. At least they treat their Jinchuriki good, right? No, they pitted all of the deaths from Kurama's release on a child, not the person who attacked Kushina and Minato, which, by the way, the majority of the higher-ups understood is exactly what happened. We didn't spread the information that Kushina and Minato came under attack by some unknown entity. Some unknown entity that went on to release Kurama, but Minato and Kushina, in their final act of heroism, sealed Kurama inside of their very own child. And that this child is quite literally the representation of the heroism of a set of parents. No. What we did do, however, is let Danzo leak the truth that Naruto had Kurama sealed inside of him in order to bring a broken community back together in their hatred for a baby. And we stigmatize and ostracize this child until any regular child would have come to a breaking point and used that very same ability they were all hating on me for to, oh, I don't know, destroy the entire village. But fortunately, that child, being the walking symbol of heroism, eventually became a hero and used all the hatred in order to become beloved by the entire village. Whew. Got lucky on that one, didn't we? It's a good thing it didn't happen in America, otherwise, well, let's just say Naruto would have had a surprise in his backpack. That's it. All the terrible things that Konoha has done over Naruto's timeline. Is there other terrible things that Konoha has done that I haven't thought of? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are at it, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell.
Well, this is a list of things that Danzo has done.
He almost became Hokage.